Umbral is absolutely bigger, bolder, and bloodier this time around.
It does feel a lot more alive.
Making sure that it feels, gory and scary and dangerous.
We want to make that creepy. We want to make it freaky.
Welcome back to Lifting the Veil, our monthly dev series on Lords of the Fallen 2. Today we have a biggie. We will be discussing all things Umbral, and joining me for that is Dan Regan, lead systems designer, James Lowe, game director, and Alex Harkin, producer. So, getting straight into it. Umbral, one of the defining characteristics of Lords of the Fallen, but I think it's probably fair to say that that was probably Umbral 1.0, right? There was a lot that we wanted to do that we didn't, and a lot of that we're doing this time round. So let's just kick things off with, what can players expect from Umbral in Lords of the Fallen 2?
I think what you said about Umbral 1.0 is a really good way to think about it. And that's because when we're looking at a feature as complex and as vast and as integral to Lords of the Fallen, it's a life cycle that has to go on. So definitely Umbral 1.0 found its space in the last game. We're definitely into 2.0 territory. And this means, more opportunities open up for us, not only as developers, but also in terms of giving players different experiences in Umbral and how can we play with it. And also really important to say technology has got better. So we can do a lot more there. So as all of these doors are opening, it's kind of realising what Umbral can actually do. But I won't steal it all.
That's fine. Yeah, it's a incredibly vast subject, the company, and it's really stunned me since joining the company just how broad it is. We have a lot of producers that handle individual disciplines, like you've got your enemies, characters, environment, that kind of thing. But then for me, if you look me up in the company charts we have on Confluence, it just says Alex Harkin, Umbral. Which is okay. And I remember when I took the role, I was a little bit scared by that, but now I've got into it, it makes a lot more sense. We have such a vast area of the game that is just comprised of systems design, environmental aspects, just the raw gameplay mechanics. So much of it coalesces into the Umbral space that we have to have just one guy that focuses on it and his team. So I think that immediately speaks to how much bigger it is this time around.
Massively.
First time a player transports to Umbral this time around, what are they going to immediately feel that, is it going to feel completely different to the last one?
I mean, you'll have some callbacks for sure. Some of the environmental aspects we have enhanced and expanded on, but I think the bigger thing for me, if we go back to the 3 Bs, Umbral is absolutely bigger, bolder, and bloodier this time around. We experimented with a lot of different visuals as we came into Lords of the Fallen 2. We had ideas like it would look like a toxic garden or something because we wanted to evoke the theme of how it would evolve and grow. But Umbral, this realm of the dead, we wanted something that really evoked something a little nastier to be more in line. So whereas players in Lords 23 kind of came to this sterile world that evoked like very cold, very quiet, almost like a desiccated carcass, a skeleton. This time around, we are seeing it begin to flourish, to come to life.
You'd almost say it's gone from realm of the dead to realm of the undead.
Yes, absolutely. And as it reflects... get that down. But yeah, as it's kind of come alive, this horrible parallel reality, of course, is not going to come alive in a way that would be considered beautiful. It's horrifying and visceral and makes your skin crawl. Looks vaguely akin to something you might see on the back floor of a butcher's. It's pretty gnarly.
Yeah, it's such a fun topic to play with, especially with Lords 23 being the base and this progression of Realm of the Dead. You expose some explorations there. It's so fun to go, how far can you actually pull it in? And what does it even mean? Umbral is now alive as much as it can be, right? What would that evoke visually? What would that evoke mechanically? And it feels like it's some, festering hellhole, which is pretty much on brief on what we tried.
It is weird to say that it feels much more lived in
Yes.
in Lords 2
Yeah, it
than
does,
Lords
yeah.
23, despite being the Realm of the Dead.
Yeah.
Well, I remember asking you what would Umbral smell like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned like if you had some meat, mince meat in
Yeah.
a bag and left it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's probably now even worse from.
Yeah.
So imagine the smell I described last time. Add a month onto it. It's just going to get worse. So by the time it gets to players, we don't have any smell elements
be a
in the
good
game.
thing.
Might be a good thing, yeah. But technology for the future. Yeah,
Next DualSense control.
yeah. Let's take it to Sony.
So how closely did this Umbral visual and mechanical evolution tie to the story?
We'll talk about the ending, I'm sure. But Umbral is an ever-presence within the Lords of the Fallen universe, especially, and it's very integral to what the player's mission is within this game. So really trying how to, I would say, evoke that feeling through not only the narrative but also through the systems. It was a massive conversation we've had, but again, I'll hand it over to Mr. Umbral.
I mean, in terms of how we go hand in hand with the story, there's only so much I can say without.
Yeah, we have to be somewhat
I have to be very careful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this time around, one of the things I remember when you and I first sat down and we began to look at the narrative and the way that the player character interacts with it, that we wanted to have more of a synchronicity between the player and Umbral this time around. I think the way we described it was kind of in Lords of the Fallen 2023, that the player was more of a passive passenger, but we wanted to evoke something that would make the player feel more of an active participant, an active user of Umbral, so less passive and more involved in what's actually going on inside that world. And as, of course, the player progresses through this world that is being somewhat affected by Umbral,
Yes, that's some influence.
there's going to be a lot of that influence,
Yeah, this whole, like, I think Dan mentioned it in like a previous episode, this whole wielding Umbral, right, is very important. And again, to kind of progress from the last game, you don't just enter Umbral this time. You rip into Umbral and you rip right out of it. And it's a lot more, I would say, it's just more brutal. And it matches what Umbral is. Umbral isn't somewhere you go chill and have a picnic. It's you get in, you get scared, you get out. And that's starting to really come through in how the player really engages with the feature.
It does feel a lot more alive this time.
It does, yeah.
Umbral in the last game, it was sort of the same from beginning to end. Very similar encounters, similar enemies, just similar gameplay mechanic. Whereas, like the moment I was talking about in the church, Umbral has these very defined moments this time around.
Yeah, and that's something that's super important to us, is to give Umbral its time in the sun. It's always there. It's an ever-presence in the game and in the player journey. And, we want to show this off. So having these moments that are only in Umbral, it's really, really big for us and as players of the game. We don't want players just to go in, get something, go out. We want them to go in, have an experience and want to get out. Like, that's the whole idea about it.
Yeah, we paid a lot of attention to the way we built the Umbral environments. In L23, players who have played Lords of the Fallen 2023, I was about to say 2, sorry, they'll know that we had a number of sculptures and structures that we made especially for the Umbral space, and we've continued on that this time to try and tell little pocket stories in the environments, little reflections of some of the events that would have taken place there. So our environment artists, they're a fantastic team, and they've done a really good job and been really heavily creative with this to create some just mad set pieces. The one we were talking about earlier, I'm not going to spoil it, but that's a very standout one in terms of...
Big shout out to Manu.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff, you're going to enter into some of these Umbral spaces and really question what the fuck is happening. Like, it is wild. There's one particular one, I won't say the name, but I'll say the code name so you guys know it. But, in the second level, you have like that vista point that overlooks the storm thing. And then the Umbral set at the back. It's wild. It's impressive. It's really, really wild. So it's bigger, a lot bigger and badder this time.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say as well that Umbral
is bleeding into Axiom
Yes.
this time around as well. They're much less so two distinct realms that you choose pretty much when to go in and out of.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I think that's the whole idea of this kind of feature and where it's progressed now. Is it's like what Alex was saying earlier, it's an invasive force, and we want it to feel like that. So things you'll see in Axiom, if it's bad there, it's going to be so much worse in Umbral, and that to me is like Dark Fantasy 101. Like, Dark Fantasy is like, okay, I see like a nice little, I don't know, I see. Let's say a little stove cooking a human hand, like that's Dark Fantasy. In Umbral, times 10 on that is going to be absolutely boiling with guts, eyeballs, things like that. So anything that you see in Axiom that looks pretty shit, it's going to be so much worse in
Umbral. To touch on something you were going to, if you mentioned, I was going to ask, so previously you've described Umbral as an ever persistent and intimidating presence, and one that will sometimes even push back. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, I can set up these gentlemen, because this is a big one for us. Like, Umbral has got a lot of features that are tied into it and things that make it work from more of a mechanical baseline element. But I think as an overarching idea of Umbral this time is that we want players to use it, but we want also Umbral to be aware of you. It was in the last game. We had systems in the last game that we know would feel like you're being watched and being pushed. This time, that's going a lot further. So when players enter Umbral this time, you will have a reason to go there. You will want to go there this time from more of a player journey perspective. But Umbral is aggressive, and it's really got its teeth out this time. I'll leave it to you guys to explain more of the systems, but there's some really interesting elements that will really drive the player pace in a different way this time.
One of the main things we had was that we wanted to incentivize players really going to Umbral rather than having the effect of like, oh God, here we go again. And we read the comments. We saw what people thought of Umbral in Lords 23, and people weren't satisfied with it. It could feel like, well, a chore. We want people to be able to use it as this, okay, well, I'm going on an adventure. I'm going to delve. I'm going to experience it. So we worked on quite a few features together just to kind of incentivize that wherever we could.
Yeah, a big focus of ours in this game has been repairing the player's relationship with Umbral. In Lords 23, I find very often players will go into Umbral and they just run from one end to the next, right?
Yeah.
You know, from where they're going to the next passage, get out of Umbral as quickly as possible. Or they would spend the entire game in Umbral, farming as much vigor as they can, and both of those are slightly problematic, right?
Yes.
Like, we want players to want to be in Umbral, but not want to be in Umbral that much, you know? Yes. So there's much more focus in things like the Dread system, for example.
Dread was another aspect of Lords 23 that a lot of people were like, well, this is a bit of a drag. For the uninitiated, you go into Umbral, and then in Lords 23, I believe it's just a continuous timer that goes through a sequence of levels to make Umbral more aggressive, have more enemies spawn, go for the player. But it always made it seem like you were on a time limit, which wasn't very satisfying.
You were, I think it's something like 400 seconds.
Yeah, like time's running out, and you get that kind of like, oh God. But if you want time to explore and to interact with the environment, it's a bit of a negative. So for Lords 2, we've looked at Dread a good couple of times now. We've gone through some iterations, and we've settled on the latest one, which we feel really does it justice. And this is a system that's more based on player interactivity.
Feels like it's a lot more cause and effect, which to me is a more organic player experience. And I think it really kind of gives a different identity to Umbral this time. Like, your actions have a reaction. Like Umbral, well, I know we've spoken about this before in different episodes and mentioned it in this one, it's a living, breathing place. It's an open wound, and if you were to put your finger in an open wound, you're going to feel it. And that's the player right now. It's that they're just like pushing that wound a bit further and further, and Umbral doesn't like this.
I think another thing about Umbral 2 is that, unlike in Lords 23, it becomes quite apparent that it can overpower you. Right? You know, in Lords 23, you get the Red Reaper, for example, but then you could cheese it, and then there wasn't really anything else that the game could throw at you.
Yeah.
And in this one, we're putting more of a focus on, okay, fine, you get past the Chaser, but there's more coming. and it's going to keep coming harder and harder and harder until eventually you're either dead or you make the smart play and get out.
I really like the idea that no player is going to be able to do the whole game in Umbral. If someone can, we probably need to unlock an achievement for this.
That is a challenge.
That is definitely a challenge. I've put the glove on down. If someone can do it, I'll be very happy. But that's one of the things I'm most excited for is which players are going to go and give that a run and see if they can push that system to the max. Because, we can play around with things and we know the max it can go. And that max is pretty harsh. And I would say, veteran Souls players, and we're not getting past it. So we want to see if players can also do it.
So the Lords 23, the loop was very much you walk through Axiom, something blocks your path, and it's a bridge, or, that's collapsed or whatever. Hold your lamp out. Lo and behold, the bridge is intact in Umbral, so you switch over to Umbral, and then you get out as soon as you can. How would you say that loop is different this time?
Well, we try to create more what we class as Umbral ingredients, so level ingredients, just assets that we can use to spice things up. We try to add more that differentiated themselves than just the straight blocker by creating more of a feeling of an incursion. One of the big objectives we had was Umbral is an invasive force this time, so that way it needs to push into Axiom. So we have systems like, can I talk about the...
Do.
Fog?
Yeah. Yeah.
Fog, where it's kind of, we want it to be an area where, yes, you go into Umbral, but you can just step straight back out if you need to. It feels like this area where, to keep it on brand, the veil is thinning, that you can step in and you can feel that Umbral immersion, but still know that, yes, you can get back out of it again without having the annoyance of, oh, for God's sake, I've got a wall here. I'm going to have to go into Umbral now. I'm stuck in Umbral until I can find a way out. So we try to play with that a little bit and still have these challenging, interesting areas. I don't know if you want to say any more about the fog?
I'll just touch on something that we discuss quite a lot when looking at Umbral, is that something that we found, after 2023 is that you're realm walking, really, right? And the cool thing about realm walking is popping in, popping out, popping in, popping out, and using both realms to your advantage. And that's something that we feel we're getting a lot closer to, where you can just hop between. There'll be things that you can only do in Umbral. There was things you can only do in Axiom, but it's getting very thin in some certain areas. There's something in Umbral. I mean, it's not the fog, but when you kill certain things in Axiom, it's not exactly like they stay dead anymore, and they will come back in Umbral in different forms and different ways, and it's kind of making a bit more of a dynamic experience between Axiom and Umbral. So, as where Alex started with the ingredients, there's more and more for players to really chew onto. So you can really have these quite wild moments that will be really for the player, depending on their actions in both realms.
And how would you say the moment-to-moment experience is different between Axiom and Umbral this time round?
There's a few that one big thing for me, I would say, is that, and this is going to sound very controversial, so get the edit button ready. Something that I love about the balance between Axiom and Umbral is that it feels like Axiom is your Souls-like game. Let's just call it that, right? For argument's sake. That's your Souls-like experience. That's Lords of the Fallen. Umbral is that, but it's like a horror game inside it as well. And so it's got like this real different mindset shift. Not even, if we just put the controller down for a second, like Axiom, you know what a stone is, you know what that landscape is, you can understand it and you can react to that. Umbral, when you put the controller down, look at it, it feels very, very claustrophobic. You don't know what the right move is. You have to think differently. You are presented with different enemies, but also the enemies from Axiom is completely changing how you survey the battlefield. So your moment to moment, and one of the elements, because there's many that I could go into, but one of the big ones for me is that I'm having to really tactically reassess my entire situation, and I cannot learn it. I have to just react to it, which is something interesting.
That's key. So, Lords 23, it was still scary going into Umbral, but because you knew you were going to be pommeled by wave after wave after wave, like unrelenting waves of enemies. And it was basically zombie and then Umbral Mama. And, that was about it. But because there was just so much of it, that was the challenge. Whereas this time round, it's much more fear of the unknown. You don't know what to expect. So you don't know you can't prepare for that either.
Yeah, there's some elements in there. It's kind of what we were talking about, like not when we were filming, but those moments where you see something swallowed and something comes out and you're like, well, what the hell is that? And it's like you just have to react to it. There's no way you can train it. You can train that that might come at you again. You don't know when, you don't know where, and it pushes this feeling that Umbral's alive. And it's alive and it's throwing stuff at you this time. It's not just like, okay, there's a silhouette of something and it's coming and I can prepare and go, okay, get ready to start carving some zombies up. You don't know where they are and they will be around you always and they will choose when to come out. And sometimes it will be a zombie, sometimes it will be something a lot nastier. Sometimes it can even be something that you've killed and it's come back and said hello again. It's very, very dynamic and will really make players think about the steps they take in Umbral.
Yeah, well, going back to what you said about, one of the prototypes was more of a jungle-esque environment, and obviously it doesn't look like that anymore, but it does feel like that still. Almost like you're carving through a jungle, and you just have no idea what lurks behind, the corner ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've used that to our advantage in some of the combat encounters as well, where we've created. Well, without spoiling it, some very interesting set pieces where we've been able to utilise that kind of meaty forest. Don't quote me on that. To our advantage, particularly with regards to just some of the... I'm trying to think how much I can say about the certain enemy types we're both thinking of.
I'll let you say it and it won't be me that said it, and that's good.
I don't want to be told off. I'll get slapped on the wrist. We have certain enemy types which have been alluded to, which are we call Morphes, which are essentially, you probably can imagine, they are enemies that morph from other enemies. So some of our creatures that we have in Axiom can turn into these horrific umbral abominations. And we've been able to work that into some of the aspects of the environment art as well in places for some really interesting set pieces that I think some of our old fans and new fans alike will really love.
So another element that I think reinforced Umbral in Lords 23 being this 1.0 was the limited visual variety from beginning to end. I don't think it changes at all. So, very quickly you've seen everything that Umbral has to offer.
Yeah.
How does that differ in Lords 2?
Well, one of the most earlier conversations when it came to Umbral and not only its visuals but also its mechanics and how it plays is it's a living force. And we've used lots of things to describe it, wounds, all this sort of stuff. But if you had one biome that's infected by Umbral, that's not necessarily to say it's the same in another place. So Umbral really is different in every single place you go, not only in terms of what you will see there, the constructions, the horror essentially, but its general tone, its general vibe. One's a bit more like prison of flesh, and it's like, oh my god, this is horrendous. Whereas one's feels a bit more toxic, a bit more bio. It's got these different characteristics. So when you go from Axiom to Umbral this time, you really know where you are, and we're presenting new things constantly. And it kind of shows the evolution of Umbral, it's the apocalypse. It's not going to be fun. So from your first interaction to your last interaction, you'll have quite a few visual delights, as horrible as they are. But you'll have them all the way through.
They're well-made visual horrors.
Yes,
So
yes.
that's the thing.
Yeah, some sick stuff in there.
And does that extend to the enemies of Umbral as well?
Yeah, so each enemy, again, it's how Umbral reacts to these environments, right? It's this back and forth. So the enemies feel different. They like behave different. Some can be more aggressive, some can be more passive, and that's something important. It keeps people on their toes, and it keeps us on our toes as we're developing. This is a massive feature of the game, and something goes without saying we take extremely seriously. So having enemies that react in different ways in different locations and do different things and interact with different enemies in different ways, the morphes being a big thing for us. Players will really be able to expect some pretty stark differences.
Anything that you can elaborate on when it comes to these new Umbral abilities?
I don't want to talk about it too much because that's going to be quite an exciting reveal when we get to show some stuff off. However, the Umbral toolkit for the player is expanded. We saw this in the gameplay reveal trailer, that there's something quite fleshy and disgusting that the player is now using to dice its enemies up, and that is one of the key Umbral ingredients. And also the lamp. The lamp is still important to us, and it's still a massive tool for the player. We don't want that just to be something that you can peer into Umbral with. We want the player to use it. So you'll see some cool stuff with the lamp this time.
So what emotion would you say defines Umbral this time around? Is it fear, urgency, dread, panic? And how do audio and visuals reinforce that feeling?
That's a toughie because it's kind of like where you go matters is the way I always see the theme, because we touched on it before when you mentioned, all the way through most of L23, it's like, it's pretty samey, but we made a real effort to try and tie the area lore into the visual and audio cue. Well, I'm not quite so sure about audio, but definitely the visuals. There's visual storytelling that we have specifically in Umbral that kind of evokes little things that have happened, battles of yesteryear, horrible events that have happened during the Umbral apocalypse, that, everybody has dealt with the situation in Axiom differently. And so the kind of murals, the almost like Umbral statues that we have in Umbral reflect that. It's this horrible, dark reflection. You could go and find the stigmas, which we had in L23. We're going to bring that back for Lords 26, Lords 2. And that'll tell you a little bite-sized part of the story. But if you go and just look around at what we've put in those environments, you can start to kind of piece together what's been happening over the course of all of these storied locations.
Consumption comes to mind. It's not quite right, but you get this feeling like Axiom is being consumed.
Okay.
Right? Throughout the entire game. And it gets worse in some places, especially as you go further on. So, I don't know if it's like the perfect word, because we're doing a lot with Umbral. We want the players to be excited in Umbral. We want them to be afraid of it. It should be a very high risk, high reward type of area for the player to explore. But if I had to boil it down to one word, I just kind of think of Umbral eating everything around it.
Yeah, I think there's a density to Umbral this time around.
Yeah.
There was a hollowness before, an emptiness, which in itself is scary, but this time it is just like oppressive. Again, it's that sense of the jungle.
Yeah.
Like, I imagine Umbral was cold in Lords 23, and this time I imagine it's boiling hot, like oppressive, sweaty, dense, dripping. So it's a very different vibe.
Yeah, I think you've stolen my word there.
Which one?
Oppressive.
Yeah.
So I think it is. It is that. It's a very strange balance. It feels claustrophobic, and like it's coming in on you, but it's not. And that's why I love this kind of prison of flesh type of thing. I want players to walk in Umbral, walk on a surface, and feel like that surface could just grow teeth and just snap.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
exactly
the kind of vibe, right?
Yeah.
So visually, it's singing this quite loud, and sonically, we have an amazing audio team. They've managed to strike that kind of horror, claustrophobic kind of feeling in these spaces. This feeling like something's writhing around. It's like, I don't know, it's like if you were in a really old room that's just full of rats and cockroaches in the floorboards, and it just feels like something's crawling all over you. And then when you get out of Umbral into Axiom, which again isn't completely a picnic over there, it should feel like a breath of fresh air. Like you can take that, okay, that stink, that horror is not there anymore. And so there's so much there that's quite exciting. And there's so many like references that we've pulled as well to kind of really reinforce that as much. And the technology has also helped us even go further. And now it's like really bringing in those mechanics to kind of also realize that vision, because we don't want it just to be an audio and visual experience. We want players to feel it. We want them to, their controller to feel it. So there's a lot of exciting things coming there on that one.
And it must be amazing as a developer. You guys are almost having your cake and eating it. So you take Moon Knight's level, for instance. You've got, the Axiom half of that, which is very traditional, knights, castles, the moon, gloomy skies. It's sort of like Souls-like Dark Fantasy 101.
Yeah.
And then you've got Umbral, where sky's the limit, do whatever you want. There's effectively no rules. Everything goes.
Yeah, it's where the sick side of us comes out, really. So we get to play, I wouldn't even say into tropes. Like Lords of the Fallen as a style is distinct in its way, and we want to honour that. And Umbral is our playground. We have fun with it. We go, okay, how dark can we really go? And when it comes to the kind of the horror of Umbral, I don't think there's many bad ideas in the room of that. I think they're usually the weirdest meetings that we have. It's like, how nasty can we go? I'm a glutton for punishment. I love to punish everything. So anything in Umbral, some of the ideas that we've had in terms of even how enemies spawn, like we want to make that creepy. We want to make it freaky. So I didn't plan on this.
It was good though.
Thanks.
It's important. It happens a lot.
Yeah. But it like even conversations that in any other context, like we're just talking about how we spawn an enemy in Axiom, it's usually pretty straight laced. But like in Umbral, it has this like nice sinister turn to it. So some of the best meetings are the Umbral meetings.
So I'm going to jump straight into Under the Lamplight. This is our community question corner, as this question's very pertinent. It comes from Matt Adams, and he asks, what made you choose the Umbral ending of the first game? What was the decision behind discarding Radiance and Inferno endings, and why?
There's a lot there, and I don't want to go into the narrative too much, because that's probably an episode of its own. But we could talk, like say, a bit more mechanically. Something that we wanted in this game is Umbral. And with the other two endings, it kind of was spelling the end of what Umbral could be. So the Umbral ending with the Putrid Mother felt like the natural way to go to really enhance Umbral and like give us the excuse to push it that one step further. So without that ending, we wouldn't have said struggled to get Umbral 2.0, but it would have been a harder road to get there. We wanted that injection. So that one was really a shot up the arse to be able to do it, essentially. It was like, so we have the Putrid Mother as the kind of like big force that's driving Umbral. The apocalypse has come. It all seems to be kind of merging together. So that was one of the main decisions. We wanted Umbral in the game. We had that opportunity. Let's push it and let's go for it.
Plus, I think it's fair to say it was the player's favourite ending.
Yeah,
as well.
it was. Yeah, which how nice is that as a marriage? We want to do something and then the players like it. It's like this is great. it's all coming up Millhouse.
And so this second question comes from Jim Freak 5965. Why are you writing on our YouTube? And it goes back to something you were saying about Umbral. Will there be any graphical upgrades with this one?
Yeah, across the whole game. We're since Lords 2023, and have been one of the first games to come out on Unreal 5. We're really in now, so we've learned a lot from then, and we've just been pushing it more and more. And also, our tools have developed to really drive quality to the next level. And with Umbral, with its visual identity and the graphical preferences that we want to go for, we need some pretty heavyweight tech to get there. It's a sticky, wet, horrible place, and that is not free, but it looks absolutely fantastic. And it's another tip of the hat to our lighting department. some of the scenarios that they've created within Umbral to really kind of get that feeling across. It's really awesome. So, yeah, a big step up for us on the graphical side.
Yeah. It does look amazing already, and I think a lot of players commented on that from the recent trailer.
Yeah.
You know, it certainly looks a step up. And
Yeah.
Lords 23 was a beautiful game, but this is really quite striking.
Yeah, seeing that trailer and seeing the response and knowing that's captured in engine, just this really good feeling, right?
Yeah.
And it's a good feeling for us. You know, we're seeing it out there. You know, definitely just puts a smile on your face when you see it in those situations.
So Colonel Hammond asks, will there be returning weapons, armor, and spells from the previous Lords of the Fallen?
Yes, across all of them. So something that's also important to us is, you know, not to lose what makes Lords of the Fallen 2023 great. You know, some really, really cool elements in there. And there's also some big factions that aren't going away, and like thinking of spellcasting, you know, there's some magic schools there that we need in the world, and so it's only right that we bring them back. We'll up them a bit, you know, we'll add some, you know, flair here and there, so it doesn't ever feel one for one. But that can go to armors. Like we look at like the Dark Crusader for Lords of the Fallen 2. That's a faction, so it'd only be right that we have more callbacks to the faction. So yeah, there'll definitely be some returning elements with a bit of visual spice.
Nice. Next question, Clever Goblin. What's the chances of the game modifiers being available at launch?
Yes, so the game modifiers is super cool. And even when I played Lords 23, I was like, that was such a fun thing to just mess around with. Infuriating as hell when it doesn't go your way, but really, really cool element. So we really want that being there on day one. Would I say on your first playthrough to enable all the modifiers? Probably not. You know, you will have definitely a different experience than what we're attending on the main playthrough, but definitely replayability town. If you've had a really good time with Lords of the Fallen 23 and then in turn Lords 2, the modifiers will just make it a lot more fun. So yeah, they'll be there day one.
Planning any new ones?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Was that up in the second part of the question?
Yeah. And final question comes from Duderino226, who just asks, but why is the rum gone?